shit. If I had that jumpsuit, I'd wear it on 4th of July. Fuck it.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Brushfire Mind. We are live, and tonight we are going to talk about the ICE raids. So, here's my position on illegal immigrants. I absolutely detest the use of the language. You'll hear people say undocumented workers. Shut up. When you say the words undocumented workers, you're lying. If you refer to somebody as an undocumented worker, an undocumented immigrant, so on and so forth, you're lying. You're actively twisting the language to speak false ideas. I feel the same about the language illegal immigrant. People cannot be illegal. Actions are illegal. Criminals are people who take illegal actions. So, if for whatever reason you're not comfortable with the correct language, which is hostile agents of a hostile foreign government, or rogue agents of a hostile foreign government, or hostile invaders, then may I offer criminal alien. If you're not ready to use real words, we can soften it to criminal alien. Illegal immigrant, immigration is a legal process. Immigration is a process under the law. Now,
Well,
I'm sure.
I mean, we all know that the left can't mean, and that is to their disadvantage. But what they do have that we never have access to is the ability for doublespeak. So they get to pervert language. They get to warp the meaning of words. They control. They control basically
The narrative.
the words that a normie, the words that someone who gets their information from the mainstream media, they control what those words are. All we have is memology. So, yeah, fight it against it all you want, but it will not change. The corporate sponsors, the corporate masters will continue to use whatever new, neologisms they come up with on any given day to basically euphemize the wholesale crime that's being committed against this country from an economic perspective and from a demographic perspective.
Now, that the function of censorship and the perversion of language is an active and intentional maneuver to attempt to sever men from God.
Yep.
Is a whole different conversation that we could even potentially pursue later in this show, in this conversation. But
just bottom line to summarize real quick, the perversion of language, the warping of language to suit one's political objectives, straight out of Alinsky. It's straight out of your 14 rules for radicals.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Just so we understand that. Yeah. Anyone who's watching this show would know that. So anyway, continue.
Frankly, if you haven't read Rules for Radicals, guys, read Rules for Radicals, Mein Kampf, Das Kapital, right? Understand the enemy's language, the enemy's philosophy. It's dangerous. It's lazy. It's small-minded work, but it's extremely dangerous, largely because it appeals so readily and easily to small, simple minds, to minds that do not pursue complex thought and can't follow a thought to its conclusion. Now back to the criticism and the use of the language. I'm sure many of you have seen the clips from Cortez earlier this week, getting at it with Homer.
Real quick, Lowry. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because it's so simple, and it's so simple and so loaded with just emotional invective that it's easily accessible to even the simplest mind.
Yeah, I mean, swords aren't complicated.
Makes the simplest person think that they're a philosopher.
Yes,
that's what that does.
And that's part of the danger of it is, stuff like that. Like Das Kapital, Rules for Radicals, that kind of work your Foucaultian garbage, your what was that French bitch? What's her name?
I'm thinking more like Sartre.
Yeah, Sartre was Stuppen the first feminist.
Yeah.
What,
Not surprising.
what the hell was her name? Dubois.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, these are people who are so perverse that they can't understand sexual engagement in any way other than an act of violence. How how small and sad you must be. But let's stick to the conversation about ICE. We're going to talk about the ICE raids
All
a
right.
little bit. There hasn't been a lot of information about how the raids are going yet, just that they are going. So what we're actually going to talk about is some of the narrative around that there are ICE raids. So, Mario, have you seen the clip of his name's Homer or something? AOC versus Homer. Anyway, AOC got just lit up in one of the committees this week, and she tried to use the language to twist it again. She referred to them as legal asylees. Okay, there is an argument to be made that lawful asylees correctly entering through a port of entry should be treated with a certain degree of kid gloves, I suppose.
I don't agree with it,
But
but that is the law, so be it.
oh, I'm actually comfortable with treating lawful asylees, but this gets to a more important point. At our southern border, there are no lawful asylees.
Correct.
Not
Because by
a
international law,
single one.
you declare asylum in the first safe country that you arrive at, and
Yes.
that would be every single time. Worst case scenario, that's going to be Mexico.
That's
So there
yeah.
are no legal asylees.
It's the country whose border you cross from the country you're leaving.
Right.
And
Turkey is where legal asylees go to. Mexico is where legal asylees go to, not
yes,
the United States.
that's the thing.
The
What?
only legal argument could be like Cubans going into Florida. That technically meets
Yes,
criteria.
yes. Now that's a little trickier too because there's not a port of entry in Florida. Um, there's not a customs control point in Florida for someone fleeing Cuba to come through. If they're coming on like a raft or whatever, it's not like we have border patrol on the beach. So that's I'll have to think about that one and
Yeah.
we could dig into it a little bit. Uh, Honestly, in the case of the Cubans fleeing Cuba on rafts and whatnot, I'm actually tempted to go so far as to say we should install just like an asylee's office at the southernmost tip of Florida. You know, it's got one dude in it and big signs that say "Park your raft here." And well, it's got four dudes in it. One that does paperwork and three with riffles. But the more important point is that there are no lawful asylees detained in Trump's concentration camps. Fucking Nimrods, man. Oh,
Please
well,
take a step into
what
Trump's palace.
the Nazis had were death camps. Concentration
Simply,
camps have been everywhere throughout history.
we simply mean to delouse you. We simply. I saw a political cartoon of a
Oh,
comparison of Trump's concentration camps to Nazi concentration camps, and it showed an image of prison guards at Auschwitz like kicking Jews out and telling them to stop coming back. It was Man, it was a busy news week though. Gosh. You want to
Yes.
you want to get in? I'm going to let you speak your piece on this, but I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about the Civil War between the like the freshman class of the Democrats and the establishment.
Oh, I'm loving it.
That's interesting to me, really.
um,
They
oh, I'm
they
not sure who. I heard somebody saying it earlier. I, oh God, who was it? It may have been Tim Pool. But I think Tim Pool is the one that I heard most recently say it. But there are a few people starting to talk now about the need for the Democrat Party to actually separate, to actually split into two parties, one the Democrat Party and one the Socialist Party. Um, and yeah,
sure, no complaints from me.
no, I'm totally comfortable with it. Um,
'Cause that'll give us an excuse to split the Republican Party.
well, and you know the thing is, Trump's not a Republican.
No,
That's that's literally the reason I voted for him. That's the primary reason that I voted for Donald Trump. I don't like the Republican Party.
no. Uh,
Um,
I loved what Trump said about Paul Ryan the other day.
I
Like
missed that.
it's like weak, ineffective, and stupid, and it's exactly what he was.
Yeah,
I mean, you had Trump in office. First 2 years, you had basically both houses of Congress and the executive branch, and there's no wall. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I mean, I pin that mostly on Paul Ryan. Mitch McConnell, he's to blame too, but Ryan,
I don't know.
that's great.
Cocaine Cocaine Mitch has spread a set of nuts in the past couple of years. He's had a few pretty solid moments.
Cocaine Mitch goes hard on a tax cut and a judicial appointment, and that's about it.
Frankly, there's not much else I want Republicans to do.
And for a senator, that's okay. The House is where I want the big like appropriation bills, basically for the financing of things that infrastructure that the country needs, like a southern border wall. So that's mostly on Paul Ryan. Mitch really was never tested on it because it never got through the Ryan House, even though he was the speaker. A lot of it you chalk up also to Trump's, being a political novice at the time, and basically them pushing it back and saying that don't worry, we're going to get to it, but we need to get these other key measures through first. You know what I mean? So
See, I think Trump is never going to be a good politician. Um,
I think he's finally getting it. I think he's finally getting it.
I think I think the Donald has a very good tactical instinct, which translates well to political activity. Um, I mean, walking in on the dictator and just flopping your nuts on the table,
Yeah.
and oh, no more homo erotic erotic erotics. Got it.
Hmm.
I mean, shit's working out. Now, frankly, I don't know that I have much else to say on the subject. It, I did see one of my buddies posted a little run on Facebook where he was laughing about the idea of people raiding Area 51 and all the memes where people were joking or cracking jokes and laughing like, ha 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 ha, ha. You're gonna try to raid Area 51 and 600,000 people are gonna come running up on it and they're gonna mow you down with a 50 cal and M134s mounted onto helicopters and
Yeah.
there's 600,000 dead, blah blah blah. And
They would
wait,
use
what?
what they would use.
Why?
What they would
Why?
use is,
Hang on.
yeah.
If, okay, so we're talking about a tiny little military base out in the middle of the desert being attacked by a huge sum of American citizens. Um, why isn't this how we're handling the southern border? Why,
Well,
why are criminal aliens not walking face first into machine gun fire every day? fewer criminal aliens would die every year if we shot every single one that we saw for the next month.
I agree with you, but you don't. There's no courage. There's no virtue left, honestly, in the government and the bureaucracy from what I've seen. But I don't know, man. That's a deeper question I wasn't prepared to answer. What I will say is that at Area 51, and the weapon that you could use on the southern border would be the HARM, the HARM, which is that microwave active denial weapon, where basically it physically repulses bodies through microwaves. Without shot fired.
I'd be comfortable with a freaking ground note gun. Just hard sound waves. Run in and knees get wobbly and you shit yourself.
Yep. Well, I mean, when it comes to the border, Lowry, it's half the government wants as many of them to come in as possible, because really, at this point, all the GDP is, all hail the GDP. The GDP died for our sins. Like that's our savior apparently. Things like culture, value, historical precedents, cultural continuity. Those things don't matter. It's all about the GDP. So they just need as many bodies to come across the borders so that they can print new credit cards, and so that they can build new, basically plywood shacks in new development centers to basically constantly maintain this endless housing Ponzi scheme, which is all that holds up the economy. So they need new creditors. They tapped out the native born. They need new people to issue credit to. That's what it's all about. Yeah, man. They don't care about you. Sorry.
Oh, I don't disagree with that statement. I do disagree slightly on the they need new creditors line, but I don't want to go down that road on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you talk about who they are.
I think you and I also disagree on who the they are.
Probably. But how about that Epstein? Okay.
Yeah, I do want to tag that a little bit. So here's the first thing I want to say about that. And I need to add this to the tags in the description. We have one viewer right now, by the way. Hi, viewer. Not the 250 some that we had last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Impressive.
I'm telling you, we need to keep doing this, because
how did that happen?
We need to be in the tens of. Well, we talked about something interesting and important and local, and that's something that we need to do more aggressively.
Gotcha. Would you guys like get like a bunch of the Proud Boys on?
That would have been interesting, but no. Okay, so Cameron lives in Polk County. I'll go ahead and talk about this a little bit.
All
right. And get you clued into what's going on. Are you aware of an organization called the Freedom from Religion Foundation?
Yes.
Okay. I'm actually going to pull up last week's episode real quick and read you the description.
Okay.
But Cameron lives in Polk County, which has quite recently come under attack by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Yeah, last week's episode was a great. It went over great. Because we were talking about something local and timely and important. So, the title was Hate Group Freedom from Religion Foundation Attacks Cedartown, Georgia Public Schools. The very small town of Cedartown, Georgia has an unpaid volunteer chaplain that prays with the football team before games. Correction, had. The small town in the northeast corner of the state northwest corner of the state, where most people go to church on Sunday, had a chaplain that prayed with the team before games until this week. To be clear, no one from the small town contacted the anti-Christian hate group Freedom from Religion Foundation to complain. Rather, the foundation became aware of the existence of the small town and that they were in active commission of the cardinal sin of not being hostile atheists when Cedartown High School football coach Doyle Kelly delivered a sermon at the Georgia State House as the chaplain of the day in March of this year. Moves like this by hostile atheists are tantamount to the use of government power as a cudgel for the explicit purpose of suppressing the practice of every American's God-given right to practice their religion. Hate groups like the FERF exist solely to strip away constitutional rights from wrong thinkers and non-deviant Americans. This attack is only one example of a powerful group targeting a small community with the expectation that the rural town cannot afford to defend itself in court.
Right. Yeah. So it's the bake the cake bigot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same situation as when the
Is there no legal framework that protects local community values against the overreach of federal statute?
Well, here's the funny thing. Hang on a second. Here's the funny thing about the federal statute. The argument that's being made by these separation of church and state assholes is that the Constitution says that the government shall make the Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. They forget the second half of the sentence that says, or abridging the free exercise thereof.
Correct.
So when they pull this shit, they're taking the gun, they're taking the government gun, and they're saying, you stop loving Jesus, or we'll shoot you in the face.
Right.
That's what FERF does. That's who they are.
I know.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Just like with the bake the cake bigot move, they're going to go around looking for small victims that don't have the money to defend themselves in court, and they're going to murder them in the press and in the litigation.
It's called tyranny. It's literal tyranny.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And it's the opposition to this kind of stuff by guys like you and I, is what the left is referring to when they say fascists, when they call us fascists.
Yep.
They keep using that word. I don't think it means what they think it means.
Not, refusing to believe in or participate in a frenzied mob is fascism. It's literally 180 degrees from what the actual definition means. I don't know, man.
I want you to explain something to me. Help me understand this. Because guys like Jordan Peterson, who I generally like, but people on the left like to say that the Nazis were right-wing, that the Nazis somehow represent what happens when the right wing goes too far. So, can you explain to me how a socialist organization is the right wing?
It was neither right nor left. It was called the third way. It's like the third path. So it was about basically fusing, the institutional protections that leftism, that socialism wants to basically use to ensure the, mutual welfare of society, but also at the same time also ensuring that traditional culture and traditional values would stay alive. It's the third way. It doesn't exist anymore. It existed for that one period in time. Cultural Marxism is the exact opposite of the type of socialism that Adolf Hitler talked about. Cultural Marxism seeks to destroy so that something else can be created.
So, okay, funny thing where I think people get it twisted when they talk about socialism in the context of political conversations, socialism and communism are not political philosophies. They're strictly economic philosophies.
Yeah, they're power structures.
And well, no, they're not power structures. Um, the point to communism in theory is that it is purely a shared economic policy that does not have a power structure. That's what philosophically, theoretically is supposed to be. Now, of course, that's impossible. There's no such thing as two humans without a hierarchy between them. You will never see two humans in the same room between whom do not exist a hierarchy.
Someone has to hold the soup ladle, and other people have to hold the bowl. I mean, it's a fact. It's a fact. You can't. There could be no pure egalitarianism.
I may be out of stuff to talk about already.
All right. Well,
oh no, Epstein. Epstein would not even be. Nobody would know Epstein's name if Donald Trump hadn't said it.
Oh yes,
10 years ago.
Very much so. I mean,
the only reason Epstein exists in the public conversation right now is because a bunch of Democrats with access to litigation and law enforcement are under the suspicion. No, they're not under the suspicion. They correctly know that if they just say Donald Trump knows Epstein, that's as good as starting a whole new Russiagate conspiracy hoax.
Correct. So,
because people who believe in the Russia conspiracy are as bad as people. They're at least as bad as people who believe that the lizard men control the world.
David Icke, my man. All right. Anyway,
active investigators of the Illuminati and the Bilderberg conspiracies are more credibly intelligent source reporters than agents of the Russia conspiracy. And I do mean to include all of the law enforcement involved in that investigation in that statement.
Yep. A Pizzagate thread on 4chan has more validity than 2 years of reporting on Russiagate. I mean, it's...
A Pizzagate thread on 4chan has more evidence than a 2-year Russiagate investigation.
Yep. True fact. So anyway, let's take this back to 2012 when the Epstein case first appeared, right? So there was a year-long investigation by the West Palm Beach Police Department after a 17-year-old girl came forward and basically stated to them that she had been raped and sexually abused and coerced by Epstein at his mansion there in West Palm Beach. Year-long investigation by the police there, right? They uncovered basically photographic, video, and testimony evidence from 17 different girls who said that they were sexually abused by Epstein, amongst others there, right? So that case goes to the district attorney, who was a Democrat appointee, and he promptly drops the case. The chief of police of West Palm Beach is absolutely enraged, and he shops the case forward to the DOJ, which was at that time under President Bush, Bush the Lesser. So anyway, this gets bounced.
Bush the Lesser.
Bush the Lesser. Anyway, a plea deal is made with Acosta. Actually, a plea deal is made with Acosta, who was, up to 2 days ago, the Secretary of what was he? One of the lesser cabinet.
He had a job.
Yeah, he had a job. He had a cabinet position, right? Anyway, he stepped down. Well, he's the one who buried it and gave that sweetheart deal of a lifetime, where the guy did 13 months where he only had to go to jail during the day and he got to go home to sleep at night. All right. Anyway, the end result of it was that Epstein got immunity from prosecution regarding that case in the state of Florida. So the only reason he got arrested again is because he had no immunity in the state of New York, and he got picked up on his way back from France. All right. So there are mountains of evidence. There's mountains of at least circumstantial evidence of what this man was doing, and there's no shortage of testimony.
Now, let me say this real quick.
Real question is, Lowry, is like, Who do you think he works for? Do you think Epstein is an asset?
That's an interesting
Do you
question.
think or do you think he's basically a self-made billionaire blackmail artist? Who does he report to, if anyone? And like, given how deep this rabbit hole would go if they followed it through to the bitter end, it isn't possible to follow this through without, well, draining the swamp.
My suspicion is that this ends with Epstein dead and a giant, giant automated contingency blackmail file.
Someone has to get suicided quick. And I people are going to get suicided. There's no way around this.
Yeah.
Anyway, like you were saying,
Now,
so
let me say this about the Acosta situation with that. We're talking about the case coming up 10 years ago,
yeah,
right? It lands in front of this DA, and he's standing there with a billionaire, a well-connected
yeah.
billionaire.
His name was Kirshner, the Miami DA.
And some little girls.
Yep.
And the question he has to ask himself is, do I cut this incredible sweetheart deal that is technically a conviction that includes convicted sex offender status?
Yeah.
But it is still a pretty sweetheart deal. Or do I let this billionaire bring forward all the resources he has to bear against these little girls that will inevitably have to be on the witness stand in the course of a very long, very public, very aggressive, very combative trial? So I'm not even necessarily saying that I think they did the right thing down there, because I don't know the facts. But let's be real. The scenario that I just described, and Butts, if you're watching, you remember Butts. This was,
of course,
Butts made this, pointed this out, and he's absolutely right. If that's the situation you're looking at, do I let this billionaire bring essentially infinite legal resources to bear to crucify these little girls who he may or may not have already raped? Yeah, let's go ahead and traumatize them some more. Or we can secure at least a functional conviction in this sweetheart deal.
So
that's a tough call.
He's too rich and too connected for justice, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he's a Clinton.
I mean, it's basically it.
And he's clearly connected to the Clintons, who are too rich and too connected for justice.
Absolutely. Bill Clinton, 26 separate flights, chartered flights on Lolita Express. That's a guarantee. I mean, that is known.
Let's not forget.
Bring it back. What?
Let's not forget. We're talking about somebody who, like I said before, would not exist in the public consciousness today if it were not for the perceived possibility that he's connected enough to Donald Trump to take him out.
Right. So I wanted to mention that. So
and
the connection.
Hang on, and the sweetheart deal that he got. Oh, did we say 10 years ago? While damn it, what's his name? The Russia investigator. Not Comey.
Here's your basic comparison, Lowry, okay? So in 2012.
No.
2012.
Hang on. We're talking about somebody who's a very, very wealthy, very well connected individual. And at the time of this conviction, Hillary Clinton is the Secretary of State.
Okay.
And Jesus, what is his name? Mueller. And Mueller is Daddy Durfee.
Yeah.
Now, I, I've mentioned several times on this show, and this is important to understand, the guy that ran the Russia investigation into Donald Trump, which we now know clearly started well before the election was decided,
Of course.
was the director of the FBI with Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
He is the director of the FBI that facilitated the Uranium One scandal.
Right.
And
I agree.
we suspect somehow that former President Bill Clinton and his direct connection to Epstein is not a factor when clearly members of the Clinton crime family, like Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State at the time and Mueller as Daddy Durfee at the time, there was no influence here to step in to save Epstein. No, this is a big chunk of mess.
Yeah.
But
So
I just hope the blackmail files drop before Epstein gets suicided. But that Epstein is going to be suicided before the election is a foregone conclusion.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, look, man. I mean, what this really is it's pure damage control. The fact that so the last time the guy was arrested, it was essentially a media blackout. Okay, you
Yeah.
did not hear about this story unless you looked for it, right? This was not on your evening news. So this time, it actually can't be avoided. All right, they have to report on this because it's happened again, and it's too big a story. The MSM has to report on this, but Epstein is what is he? What is he? He's a billionaire. He's a hedge fund manager, and he's a high-powered, financier of various Democrat politicians. Right? He's a pure globalist,
And he's a Clinton ally.
and he's probably running a blackmail operation, possibly connected to various other foreign national intelligence agencies. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. It's too big a story. They have to report this. So what's the one angle that they can use? Oh, Trump ate dinner with him twice. Close friend of Trump. Even Fox News does it, which is so pathetic. Like they'll report Epstein anytime Epstein is referenced, at least in the first 48 hours of this story dropping. The friend of Trump or associate of Trump was used essentially as basically a title,
Yeah.
a title as like a suffix to his name every time it was mentioned.
Yeah.
Because that's it. That's all they've got. That's the only means they have to deflect this story from its proper logical conclusion. But people are stupid, so.
Yeah, and I think real quick, Fox News. God, fuck Fox News. Jesus, Fox News. John Ward put out a good video a day or two ago about Fox News and how it's essentially just
Is he the guy with the Harambe icon?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that guy, yeah.
Yeah, John Ward's work is absolute pure genius. I think he may have had one or two misses, but have you seen his video on Keith Olbermann?
No, the only one I saw was the one you sent me about Comey and his, the caption of the Comey in the Oval Office.
And then I felt a solid tubular thump on my left shoulder, and I knew that Michelle had staked his claim.
my heart dropped as that Michelle had staked her claim.
I'll send you a link to this most recent one where he basically makes the claim, and I think very, very correctly so, that Fox News is just another Democrat far left wing political propaganda outlet.
Well, Fox News is the mouthpiece of the Chamber of Commerce, basically the Koch brothers. The election of Trump exposed who actually was conservative and who was traditional and who were just basically the neocons and the corporatist interests. So Fox News, they try. They're not stupid. They know what their base are, but they don't serve their base exactly what they want.
All right. Well, we're coming up against the hour. And we got 8 more minutes, but I don't want to use them. I'm done. I'm good. And I want a cigarette. So, good fight. Good night. Light them on fire.